Yeah, I didn't know the police paid for my lunch in Turkey. Yeah, and
The police paid for your lunch.
yes, like normally people you have to go and bribe police. Police paid for my lunch.
Hi everyone, welcome back and thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of Spill the Tea with THG. And by now you probably know that our first 3 episodes we have been talking about societal issues that are very close to our heart. Our first episode we gave you some tips on parenting. Our second episode we gave you some tips on elderly care. The third episode we give you some tips on foster care, and today we are going to give you some tips on traveling. And these societal issues are issues that are very close to our hearts, so we hope that they are very relatable to you. So do continue to tune in to us on Spotify.
And catch us on Instagram and Facebook.
Yes, and let us introduce ourselves first. I'm XY.
And I'm Jia-Chen.
And we are from The Hidden Good. And today we are so happy to have 2 very seasoned travelers join us today. And they are Juvena and Haren. Woo!
Hello.
Say hi! Yeah. So a little bit about Juvena, or also known as...
So Juvena, also known as the Wandering Wasp. So that's wandering with an A and wasp as in WASP. She has her own blog, thewanderingwasp.blogspot.com, where she writes about her travels on her Vespa. And Haren is a hoodie by night, and by day he manages a chain of safari resorts in India, which is his family's business. He's also an avid traveler, and he enjoys motorcycling, scuba diving, and trekking.
Yes, and going back to Juvena, you can always follow her on the blogspot at thewanderingwasp.blogspot.com, which is thewanderingwasp.blogspot.com. Yes. So now let's start by talking about a little bit about traveling. So maybe you can share a little bit about just briefly your experiences. Where have you been to? The countries that you have visited so far? Yeah. Anyone?
So 4 years ago, I left Singapore on a Vespa scooter and I traveled overland from Singapore to Czech Republic over 27 months, crossing 25 countries and 44,000 kilometers.
Wow.
Yeah, that was what I did.
Wow. and those are on your blog, right? They can really
blog,
find out.
my
right?
Facebook, Instagram. I do share snippets of stories on these platforms.
Nice. How about yourself, Haren?
For me, I was born in Singapore, but when I was 3 months old, already my parents had started the first resort, so they brought me over to India, and I pretty much grew up there until I was 5. But every time it was the off season, my parents would bring me to travel overseas. By the time I was 3 years old, I think I'd been to like Mauritius and South Africa, and these are places like many people haven't even been to. Like on a normal basis, nobody really travels there from Singapore, I think. And then by the time I was 20, my dad, being a crazy traveler, he had brought us to a lot of places, Antarctica, South America. We'd pretty much seen a lot of the world already, and I think now I've traveled to maybe 36 countries.
Wow, 36 countries.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
Right.
It's really opened up my eyes to what the world is about.
Yeah. How old are you, Haren?
I'm 26.
26 and 36 countries. That's like crazy. I don't have anyone that does it except for Haren. Yeah. And I think the interesting thing that I know it's both of you also met. Both of you are bikers, and y'all love to travel on motorcycles, and y'all met while traveling, right? Like, was that it?
Actually, we met
On
at
a
a
bike
motorbike
show.
expo.
Yeah,
On
at
the
a
bike
bike show last
expo.
year. Yeah.
But then I think they ran into each other on the road somewhere.
Yeah, in
on a
Malaysia.
bike.
At an event.
Yeah.
I think that's the amazing thing about travel is just how it brings people together. Like
Yes.
sometimes I've run into, met random people just while traveling and suddenly that becomes a connection and then you run into them
Yes,
again and it's
absolutely.
pretty amazing how it has people's paths cross, right?
Yeah.
So this is not a very typical way of traveling, I would say, as compared to many of us. So why do y'all choose to travel that way, like in this mode of transport?
I think I'm first and foremost a motorcyclist first, followed by a traveler. But my first time traveling with friends when I was, I think around 18 or 19, it was a trip to Vietnam that opened up my eyes to how other people live. There are different lifestyle and societal expectation of them, which is like very different from where I grew up from, and Singapore is, we just this small bubble, and there are people who live very, very differently. And that ignite a curiosity in me. I want to see really how the world is really like, because I just realized that we are really small. Actually, there's so much more out there. And so with the combination of my love of motorcycling and also traveling, with them combined, I decided to do that trip. Yeah, and it is, I think, one of the best thing I have ever done. Because previously I've traveled like fly and travel, and this time round I have my own mode of transport. So it offers more freedom because you can stop and go wherever you want. You're in total control of your movement, like, and who you want to meet, and you are in charge of your schedule. So that was really ultimate freedom. Yeah.
Right. Do you feel the same too, Haren?
Similar to what Juvena said, I think for me, I've been traveling as a kid. And then I always felt, I traveled a lot, but I always felt like I was traveling in this bubble. Like, okay, I'm taking the airplane to the airport, I'm going to like a nice hotel or the cruise ship, or I'm in a car, and you're not seeing the full picture, right? And then I think last year I finally bought like a pretty decent motorbike for traveling. And then I decided, especially in India, which I've always been traveling in India. I own 5 resorts in India, so I've been living in this bubble, which is the resort, office, and then back to Singapore. I haven't really explored India for what it is. So I decided last year that I want to go out, buy a motorbike, and see what India really is, and really just put myself out there. And then I just got on my bike and started going, and I just loved it so much that I just keep doing it now.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what actually inspired you all to even take the first step to start traveling out of your own comfort zone? Like Juvena, you said you realized that when you went to Vietnam, you see how other people live and all that. But that is something when you reach there, then you kind of figure that out, right? But what was the first step that inspired you to actually do traveling?
I think a lot of us, we have fears of the unknown. And actually, I had this dream for quite some time, and I didn't really dare to actually put it to action because of fear of the unknown, fear of uncertainties. But then the trigger point was when a friend passed away. He was an avid motorcyclist who he was a very encouraging figure in all my motorcycling endeavors, and he was planning to ride from Singapore to the border of China. Unfortunately, just like 1 week before he was supposed to set off, he passed away while driving a van. This is so uncertain, right? So his passing made me realize how short and uncertain life really is, and I decided to really put my fears aside. Yes, people say that I'm brave. Like, wow, you're not scared of anything. But actually, I am scared. But I think that if we live our life in fear all the time, I think we can't really do justice to this life we are living. Sometimes we should go out there and explore, because all of us will come to the end of, die one day. So in between, really, do you want to live your life in fear, or really do you really want to live it? So I decided to really, okay, I'm going to do this. Okay, I don't want to wait until I'm like retired, because that time may never come. So I just give myself a deadline. Okay, work and save up as much as I can. Okay, and I just went. Yeah.
And what were you doing previously? Because I think a lot of people, they want to travel, but it's like, how do I make it work as well, right? And you said you worked really hard and saved up. So how did you make that work?
Okay, so a lot of people think that I'm like very rich, but actually I just come from a middle class family, stay HDB flat. I have to fund my own university school fees. I worked, and I also moonlight. And also, I moonlight at restaurant, giving tuition and everything. So I was sometimes working for 3 weeks every day nonstop. So I guess it's your priority. And okay, not everybody's priority wants to travel. Some people want to climb Mount Everest. Some people want to travel. Everybody have different goals. So if you really want to achieve something, I think you should stop giving yourself the excuse.
Right.
Yeah.
If there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, if I have no money, okay, work, save money. So I have to give up a lot of things, like even social life. Okay, I didn't watch movie for more than a year. Sometimes friends invite me to go for some concert. I was like, no, I have to save money, I have to work. So I was setting my priorities towards that goal, and I sold my extra motorcycles. I was, just really dedicating myself to that trip. And then when the deadline came, and so I just decided, okay, I'm not sure even I have enough money to last, but I'll just go. You give yourself a deadline and just go. And then actually I realized that you figure things out along the way. You cannot be 100% ready.
Yeah.
I was a total mechanical idiot before I left. But at the end of the trip, after like almost 2 years, I was doing overhaul of my engine in Serbia, and I was fixing the scooter on the roadside.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
from mechanical idiot to the roadside mechanic,
Yeah.
that was how much those 2 years have taught me.
And I think that's what traveling does. It helps us to grow, you
Yes,
know,
you-
as well. Like,
You
just-
get yourself into a situation whereby you are forced to ask for help. You are forced to do things yourself. You are just forced to learn. I think that's the best way to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about yourself, Haren? I mean, managing safari resorts in India, your inspiration is probably totally different from.
Yeah, I think what happened for me is I already have work, which is in India, which already involves a lot of traveling. So from one place to another, we're talking about domestic flight and then a long drive. So that was very normal. But I think what happened was I realized I didn't know India at all besides what was at these resorts or what was in the city where my offices are. Because I just never got time to go and venture beyond that.
Right.
And I think that's what brought me out to go and, get on a motorcycle and just get out there and meet people and really solo as well. So get out there and you're really meeting anyone and everyone and asking for help at like the smallest little sheds or like the smallest little towns and eating in like dank little places where you don't know what the quality of the food is, so you just stand by the pill in your pocket already just in case something happens. And that's what really gets ourselves out there. And just like Juvena, I think there's always, it's not like we're like super brave or super out there. Like before every time I depart for a tour, it's a very anxious night. I
Right.
probably never sleep properly before the day I leave. There's probably anxiety until I reach the highway. And then once everything's kind of purring along smoothly and my mind clears up, and then I'm like, okay, whatever happens now happens. Whatever I have now is what I have.
Right.
The rest, I'll improvise, I'll jugaad,
Yes, Jugaad, Indian innovation.
Yeah, Indian innovation, improvisation. So,
Okay.
so that's
I
the thought
think
process.
I really like that perspective because I think a lot of what we see of travel these days on social media, online, we see like the glossy parts of it, like the
Yes.
super cool landscapes, like, these like picture perfect moments. And we don't really see sometimes the fear that's behind it that you overcome. And I mean, I've heard this quote that says, courage is not the absence of fear, but it's feeling fear and doing it anyways.
Yeah.
And even if you feel scared, you go out and do it, or you're like, you're not sure which road to take, you just go and see what happens. And I think that realness in the journey too, knowing that there's going to be ups and downs and that you kind of, but it's an opportunity to also look at it in the face and overcome it. So thanks for
Absolutely.
sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Jason, yourself, you also love traveling a lot.
Yeah.
Right? You always have your little. You want to share a little bit about your pet toy?
Oh,
You
yes,
always bring
yes,
while
yes.
traveling?
Well, that's been a recent development, actually. I think, so I have a little sheep called Millie or Milford that I actually got at right after my husband and I, my then boyfriend / fiance, we had just gotten engaged and we are like, oh, we should get like, something to mark this moment. So we ended up getting this sheep called Millie or Milford, and he has his own like hashtag on Instagram, Milford's Adventures. You can check it out. But it's quite weird. Like, it's like this sheep in like different places. I think I love traveling, but I can't say like, I think I've been as courageous as Juvena or Haren, just like going out there for like many months. My travel tends to be more bite-sized. So, between traveling for work, so I travel probably on the average like once a month for work and traveling for leisure. So I've been to about, I think, I just counted this recently, but I think about 41 countries so far, and for different reasons. But I think something at the core of what I do is I try to take the opportunity when I travel to connect with what's really like happening in the ground. So even when I travel for work, like let's say I'm at a conference in Jakarta or something, right? When the conference is done, or even in between when I can get out, I like to go and talk to locals or just to learn about what is it really like, because sometimes I feel like you were saying we can travel in a bubble. But I really feel like travel has the ability to help us pop that bubble, the bubble that we normally live in our day-to-day lives. So even if it's like a weekend trip, one conversation can change that whole experience. And I think it's really that little things that make a big difference. In the long run, it's that sometimes just stopping to try a local restaurant instead of just going to, the things that we're comfortable with, like going to like Starbucks or McDonald's, which is not bad as well. Sometimes it's nice to have familiarity, but just, I love being able to buy, when I buy souvenirs or buying local products, I love buying that from, local artisans instead of just like, mass-produced markets. And for me, that's like the little ways I think in which we can do good while we travel. And I think travel is such a great tool to open our minds, open our perspectives, and also a great time to, I think, reflect on life. And and this year I think I've been trying to do more travel for leisure. Last year I was traveling a lot for work. So this year, for my 30th birthday, my husband and I, we did the Trans-Siberian Railway from from Moscow to Mongolia. And that was like super cool, because it's something I've always wanted to do, but then I was like, I'm very scared. I don't know what to expect. I have no concept of Russia, okay? No idea what it's like. Have not been on my longest train journey was like an overnight train in India. This is like almost like a full week of like being on the train without a shower and just figuring it out.
Without shower.
Yeah, no showering. I can't say.
It's really crazy because if you follow her on Instagram, you also feel like you're traveling. All the stories are about the train rides and all. You're just part of the whole experience with her.
Sometimes I like disconnecting when I'm traveling. But I think for me, part of travel, and I think, Juvena, you do this really well in your blog, right, is telling those stories, because it's about, I think, not everyone might want to or even like go to these places, but if you share these stories and share your perspectives and, those little moments, it opens up the world for a lot of other people as well. Yeah, so we did that, and then went to Mongolia, lived with a nomadic family. It was just really cool, and we had we went on this thing called Blue Sky Escapes, and just a different world that I feel like I had no concept of Mongolia or Russia before this, and it really just opened up my world. And it was just like a short trip. I haven't done the whole 27 months thing, very in admiration of that. But I think, for the everyday person, just finding these little moments when we do travel to find ways to connect to the local communities, to support the local communities as well, can really make a big difference.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of good things while you're traveling and all the fun and interesting things that you have met. But is there any problems, especially for the longer term travel kind of stuff? What are some problems that you're probably faced while traveling?
Yeah, what are some challenges and how did you overcome it?
Yeah.
I think for long-term travel, yes. Okay, one of them is finances.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And also, visas. You can't stay in a country for as long. You have to work around with all these bureaucratic things. And okay, honestly, for me, I do feel homesick, but not a lot.
Okay.
Because I think that the power of, the magic of the world is like even more than my homesickness. So, I think that what keeps me on the road for a long time. But occasionally, sometimes when I stay with family and then I saw the kids, then after I start thinking of my own nephew and niece that I haven't seen for 2 years. And sometimes, it kind of make me a bit homesick. Yeah, and food. I miss the diversity of food in Singapore.
Yeah, exactly.
But do you get to try? I mean, you probably get to try different locals when you're local food when you're traveling, right?
Yes.
Which is probably the most memorable one for you.
Wow, there's a lot.
There's a lot.
It's a lot. Okay, also because I'm a vegetarian, so India was like really heaven for me.
Right.
Yeah, and some home cooked food.
How did you manage being vegetarian and traveling? Because sometimes some places, they might not. Like when I was in Mongolia, they really do not eat vegetables at all. Like, it's all meat.
I have to admit, although I try to be vegetarian most of the time, but there are times where I have to make compromises. Because sometimes when family hosts you, they're very nice to offer you all the stuff, then you cannot say, I don't want. Yeah, it's a bit rude and it may upset them. So
I think he's being flexible, right?
Yeah, I think you have to be very flexible. You cannot be sometimes, because you're traveling, you cannot be back to doing all your old things, right? So sometimes you have to try new things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're saying the challenge of like finances, right? Like how did you overcome that? How did you make it work for yourself? Like
I think I was like very frugal, and I also have to admit that the people I met helped me so much along the way. Without them, I wouldn't have last all these 27 months on the road.
Right.
So it could be like people paying for my meals, sometimes even telling me. I didn't know the police paid for my lunch in Turkey.
The police paid for your lunch.
Yes, like normally, people you have to go and bribe police. Police paid for my lunch,
why do you think they paid for your lunch?
I think because I'm alone, and I approached the policeman to ask for help because I didn't have a phone. I need to contact my host. And so I asked him to help me. Can you bring me to the shop to get a SIM card? And then I want to eat. So he brought me to a restaurant and he asked me to order. He helped me order. And I didn't know they actually paid after I ordered.
Yeah.
So when after I finished eating, I want to pay. And then the waiter was like, "Oh no, policeman paid for your meal." I didn't even get to thank him.
That's something that travel, brings out that kindness of strangers that helps us overcome these
Yes.
challenges. What about Haren? What about you? What some challenges that you had along the way, and how did you overcome them?
I think for one, I wasn't traveling for 27 months, but there was this trip which is to Ladakh, which is Indo-Tibet, right? It's the Indian side of Tibet. And of course, it's way up in the Himalayas and conditions are very tough. And the roads keep getting swept away by like glacial flows and landslides. And I think you've been there.
Yeah.
Juvena's been there as well. So she knows what it's like. And what happens is I went there solo. I had plans to meet another riding group when I reached the end. But along the way, I was honestly quite worried, like what the roads would be like. And it's one of the world's most dangerous highways, right? The Leh-Manali Highway. And it was very interesting that over the 2 days that it takes to go from Manali to Leh, which is about 400 kilometers, I really met friends. I would call them brothers for life on that road in 2 days. Because what happens is everyone leaves Manali in the morning. Everyone gets stopped at, everyone stops at the same scenic spots to take pictures. And you kind of start with a little bit of banter there. And then you come up to these obstacles, which are like glacial flows, muddy water, just cold muddy water across river stone, and you have to get your bikes across. And everyone bands together, gets them across, moves on to the next one, moves on to the next mountain pass, takes pictures, then stops at the next glacial crossing. Everyone gets off, everyone's helping each other
Kind
get
of a
across.
collective journey,
Correct.
right? Yeah.
And so all these people who were strangers in Manali are now brothers by the time they reach Ladakh, And then everyone goes like to the same spots more or less in Ladakh, like the same few villages and the same few spots. And so you're suddenly moving with this whole family that you've just met.
I think, and that's super cool because you were talking about meeting locals, but this is about meeting fellow travelers along the way and being on that journey together. It can also be really meaningful, right?
Exactly. And it wasn't just locals. I mean, people from all over the world come to ride this. And so we had Germans, we had an Aussie guy. I met one guy who was ex-British Special Forces dude, 63 years old, and it was his life's target to do the four corners of India on a motorcycle. And he was just starting his journey then. And it took him a month to do that. But it was crazy. It was really, really interesting. And such nice people as well.
Yeah. And I think it's really about that opportunity to connect with people that you don't usually connect.
Absolutely.
At your home and that makes traveling really, really meaningful and really fun and interesting. So, I mean, to our listeners out there, is there like one tip you'll probably give to young adults that are wanting to travel, be like yourselves and travel and really explore the world? What is one tip we will give to them?
So this is a quote from Rumi, a Persian poet. Say, before setting out on a journey, never seek advice from those who never left their home.
Leave that mic drop.
Nice.
Yeah, that's amazing. I could give a few tips. Mine are more technical. Wow. I would say yes, just like Jay-Z was saying, let's support the local culture, let's support the local traditions. I think reading up on this a little bit is good, especially like, for example, certain temples, certain places you don't want to go in if you're not dressed appropriately or whatever. And also, I think Google, like technology is our friend, right? And when it comes to supporting small little local outlets, many of them aren't on Google Maps or whatever. So what we can do is when we go there, we can take pictures, leave reviews, and leave little write-ups. So other people know how to go there as well. Leave a little trail for people to follow.
Right,
when they're
right.
there, so that these guys get their names out there.
I think a tip from me, and this is something that, you know, we believe at the Hidden Good, is really that doing good doesn't have to look a certain way. And in the same vein, that travel doesn't have to look a certain way. So, you know, I think travel opens our minds, and we're not telling you to give up all the luxuries of travel and just go off the beaten path, but to do little things, you know, even if it's just one action during your trip. The next time you go, can you look for a fair trade store to buy your souvenirs, or can you find, you know, a local business or a restaurant to support instead of going to large chains? I think it's these little ways that we can travel more consciously, and it could just start with having a conversation with a local to understand more about the way they see their communities, the way that their worldview, their perspective on issues that can really open our minds and broaden our world. And then telling those stories online. You can always hashtag The Good Travel. That's a series that we're running at The Hidden Good, but it's not just about us. We want to share stories that you guys have as well. So we have different options and stories that we've told in Myanmar, Indonesia, Malaysia, and with our partner Explorer. So Explorer is spelled ACTXPLORER.com, and they have a lot of opportunities you can look for if you're looking for different interesting ways to travel.
Yep, and that is a wrap for this episode of Spill the Tea with THG. So if you like what you're listening, do continue to follow us on Spotify and follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well. And till then, we talk to you soon. Bye!
Bye!